What's Making Headlines? Your weekly wrap-up of the biggest news stories in the Australian mortgage and finance broker market.
Hello and welcome to What's Making Headlines, your weekly wrap-up of all the big news happening in the mortgage and finance broking space. My name is Ben Squires. I'm the commercial content writer at The Advisor, and I'll be hosting this week's show. No Annie this week. She's down in Melbourne for the new Broker Academy, and no Charlie either. Charlie's not feeling so well, so we send our wishes to Charlie. Hopefully he gets better soon. Thankfully, it's not going to be me delivering a 1 hour stream of consciousness straight down the barrel, though. We've got another guest on to this week's show, helping me out this week. We've got Julian from Broker Daily. Julian's a senior journalist at Momentum Media. You would have seen him on What's Making Headlines before. He also hosts a few shows on Broker Daily, Business Accelerator, Broker Daily Uncut, and we're really happy to have him on the show. So thank you, Julian, for helping me out.
No, thank you. It's been a while since I've been on What's Making Headlines. I remember going on a few months ago with Annie, I rember, which was great. So it's good to be holding down the fort with you, Ben.
Yes, twisted your arm to get you on the show.
No, any opportunity.
How's your week been so far?
It's been good. It's been kind of a strange kind of cadence, really. So times of quite quiet, and then suddenly something happens, and it's like we got to move. So obviously we're going to be unpacking a few of those things today, but yeah, just a real mix of tempos, which is what I like sometimes. You know?
Yeah, always keeps things interesting in the old journalism game. I think speaking of sort of big stories, this one came out on Thursday, and this was a really big one that we flashed on both of our titles. There was an announcement from the FBAA, or the Finance Brokers Association of Australia, regarding their leadership. So there's been a big overhaul. They've announced a new CEO and a new chairperson, this sort of follows the resignation of long-serving Managing Director Peter White AM and the departure of former chairman Brett Spencer earlier this year. But we found out that Melbourne-based executive Leo Gajic will step into the role as the new CEO, while former federal politician Senator Nick Sherry will step into the role of independent chairperson. Yes, this was really big, we found out about this on Thursday.
Absolutely, and I mean, it's not necessarily something that wasn't to be expected. I mean, we covered a few months ago the resignation of Peter White, which obviously was a massive story at the time. You know, he's been in the position for over 20 years now. So everyone was it was all eyes on the FBAA of where this was going to go. I think the surprise, or at least the newsworthy side of things, was the kind of direction, because both of these appointees are not from typical kind of broking backgrounds. And in the past, you know, FBAA has always kind of kept it kind of within that remit. So it'll be kind of interesting to see kind of the new direction that takes and how that shapes up.
Yeah, that was an interesting through line, because I think, the FBAA traditionally has sort of had that sort of industry insider leadership. And while both these appointees are highly experienced, they sort of are slightly removed from the coalface in terms of mortgage and finance broking. It will be really interesting.
What was Gajic again? It was CEO of Access Mercantile, I think, and then
he was there for 6 years. He departed in February 2026. He briefly worked at Liberty Financial 2 decades ago and was the manager of credit operations at NAB at the turn of the millennium. But his background is sort of heavily rooted in operational management rather than sort of broking itself. And of course, Sherry is a former senator as well. Kind of that side of things. He's a prominent figure, though, in the superannuation sector. He was Australia's first minister for superannuation and corporate law. And he will be working closely, though. He has worked closely in the past with Justin Delaney, who's the FBAA's newest Tasmanian-based board member. So there is a little bit of a link there.
And obviously, like for us as journalists, you know, we always take, the budget reminds me of this, is the news comes, but it's really what happens afterwards, which I often find particularly interesting. So, I mean, FBAA's got about 14,000 members, and how that kind of direction, how, what role it takes in the market is going to be interesting, because obviously they've pulled out of the market in New Zealand, which I think we'll get onto in a second. But it's that kind of news that it keeps you thinking, where's it going to go? How is it going to change the organization? Because those top level recruitments, they always are going to change the entire culture of a place.
And these industry bodies as well play a huge role in shaping the conversation to regulators and within the industry and also outside the industry as well. And when you've got someone in the sort of head role like Peter White AM, who's been there for so long, I think it's just sort of interesting to sort of
I was interested in the wording of the boards when it dropped this morning for us. It came into my inbox. One of the bits that stuck out to me, it said it embraced new starts.
Yeah.
And they said these appointments are very much part of that kind of embracing of a new start. So it'd be interesting. You know, obviously the industry's changing so much anyway. You would expect the FBAA, regardless of what is happening with their leadership, to be adapting to that, and of course they are. So moving forward, you know, it's how they adapt to, you know, AI, which we're going to be talking about, how they adapt to kind of best interest, all the different things that are kind of coming out right now is going to be super interesting.
Yeah, and also the sense of the broker market shares hit such a high point. You know, will it get to a point where there's going to be just increasing competition? Will there be need to be consolidation?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, how's that going to play out? Yeah, it's a really interesting time for the associations, and of course, we've got such a spotlight on housing as well. A lot to advocate for, I suppose.
But on that other flip side, I mean, pulling out of New Zealand, that also came across.
So we received confirmation from the FBAA on Thursday.
I heard a few things
after
prior,
some media reports. So it confirmed that the FBAA's member-based operations in New Zealand are now closed 3 years after launching in 2023. Basically, the FBAA said membership numbers for the Finance and Mortgage Advisors Association New Zealand, which was the New Zealand sort of outpost, membership numbers just didn't reach the level required to make it financially sustainable. There were also some recent changes to licensing and commission structures in New Zealand, which weighed on the decision. And, you know, these sort of developments require additional time and resources that we wouldn't necessarily have without a sufficient member base. It's interesting. I think one important thing to note is, and I think we've touched on this on the podcast before, the Australian and New Zealand sort of mortgage markets are slightly different. In Australia, brokers need to be part of an industry association to deal with aggregators and lenders, whereas they don't have to in New Zealand. But yeah, I just said the reality was that it's unable to sort of continue in its present form as that member-based industry body.
That's an interesting part of it, right? Because we're so used to industry bodies here in Australia, and it's such a part of the overall industry to have those associations there. Like everyone knows of them, you know, everyone looks at them, and for us, you know, we're always, you know, talking to them, and it's a big part. So to not have them, it'd be interesting to see, like, how does that work? You know, how do brokers kind of work together? Where does the kind of those traditional roles that associations play? It'd be interesting to see, like, what fills that void.
Yeah, because it's not just the advocacy side of things, it's the support side of things as well, and sort of the education side as well. But while it's not sort of going to be ongoing in its current form as a member-based operations, the FBAA said it does remain committed to supporting New Zealand advisors where it can, and will continue to work with regulators and government to advance the industry. So it's not a complete pullout. It's just a bit of a change, I suppose, which is the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that was the biggest news, I think, this week. So it sort of kept us busy on Thursday.
Yeah, we knew some of the headwinds coming, but we didn't quite see it. And then this morning was like, oh, there it is.
Yep, we've got to start working pretty quickly. We'll probably take a quick break right now. But when we get back, we'll be talking about AI and the growing divide between what technology can achieve and what businesses are using it for. We'll be right back after this message. Welcome back, everybody. Now we're going to turn our attention to AI and broking. And it's great that we've got Julian on the show this week, because he's been writing a lot of stories in the lead up to the Business Innovation Summit.
Absolutely.
Which is coming very soon. And Broker Daily is this media partner, sponsor?
Yeah, absolutely. It's our piece. Obviously, it's principal partner, NextGen.
Yeah.
Business Innovation Summit, and obviously subsequent awards. I should mention some dates for you guys, just in case anyone wants to get involved. So Wednesday, 24th of June is the Sydney Awards. It'll be at Illumina Sydney. And of course, the events, there's 2 events going on. So the first one's in Telstra Centre in Sydney. That's on the 24th of June, just before the awards. And then Melbourne, just after, 3rd of July in Fed Square at the Edge, which is a lovely venue. But yeah, obviously in the run up to this, I've been talking to some of the keynote speakers, and I've been really impressed. Slightly worried sometimes, always with AI. You're kind of
Yeah, I've seen you come out of those
tango.
interviews, and you're sort of it really looks like you've taken in a lot of information.
Shell-shocked. Yeah, so I've done 2 really interesting interviews with 2 of the keynote speakers there. So the first one I want to talk about is Seth Watts. A lot of people will know him. He's a tech entrepreneur. He's the founder of Campaign Agent, which basically handles a lot of the marketing and payment-to-payment things. And that controls about 50% of the market, but he sold that and now he's onto AI conveyancing, a platform called Prepared that he's building down there in Melbourne. What I was obviously talking about with him was kind of the contours of AI, where it's going and how people are using it. And I mean, he really shocked me with some of his kind of language there, in the sense that the speed that things are changing is massively outpacing the uptake. So he kind of made the example of a lot of executives, at least, they heard about ChatGPT, they heard about Gemini, they heard about these things, and they tried them a few years ago, and they found that they hallucinated, they found that there were issues, they found, what the hell is this going to be doing in my business other than incredibly simple tasks? And then they kind of backed off. Now we're looking at a period where people are starting to look at what the capabilities are, and it's changed so much in just a couple of years. He basically said himself, the first time round, the last major change with the smartphone, he was in different businesses, and this time he called it $1 trillion human changing kind of era that we're entering. And he kind of said to me that businesses are really underutilizing these capacities. But on the flip side, he kind of issued hope in the sense that he saw that that's okay. You know, that when you're handed this new tool, how you figure out how you use it is all part of that process. Right?
And I think a lot of brokerages are still trying to figure out what best practice AI use looks like in their business as well, and sort of where are the areas where we should be using it, where is it just sort of adding the most value on that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's obviously a big kind of debate to play in it. And I think that a lot of brokerages right now, a lot of business owners are kind of out the sidelines, kind of looking, well, what can I pour my energies into that works, while I don't want to be left behind, but at the same time, I don't want to pour a load of investment into innovation that doesn't actually work or goes nowhere. But I think, again, what I found interesting that he said is that this is such a different technology to other innovations that we've had in the past, because it's basically just language, right? It's basically the way that you interact with it is radically different. For other innovations, you might have to look at getting in technicians, getting in coders, you know, investing in hardware. That's not the case with artificial intelligence. Anyone can have a try, and I think that was the main thing that kind of came through, is just give it a go and see where it goes. Start with the menial stuff. And it was interesting because I think often in the industry, there's this feeling that you have to use it for these incredibly difficult, incredibly complex tasks to really utilize its benefit. He said, no, start easy and then move forward. And another thing I thought that was really interesting that he said was, often he found the people that were working best with it were actually the kind of experienced older people that weren't necessarily using tech that much in the past, because they had that expertise to really get the most out of it. You know, it's only as good as what you're going to be able to input into it. Yeah,
part of it is that sort of knowledge and experience to know how to articulate your prompts and that kind of thing, I suppose. And that's what probably creates the most ideal outputs.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of leads me on to the other interview that I did. Why AI in broking needs a rethink, I think the article was called. And that I talked to Pete Williams, another keynote speaker. He's the founder of Deloitte. I think he's the chief of The Edge, which he described to me at Deloitte. That's basically where Deloitte is kind of pushing the boundaries of what they can do with AI. And again, like it's so interesting talking to these people, because we all know about AI, and there's all these debates. Is it a bubble? Is it going to change the world? And then when you talk to people who are really immersing themselves, you start to see the actual practical applications as to where it could go. So I think Pete really gave me a good kind of insight into that, kind of the greatest value of AI. And this is where I think I've been getting it wrong, and I think a lot of people getting it wrong, is you're giving it prompts to get something back from it rather than the other way round. So he kind of said, use it as a dialogue partner and use it to get the best out of you rather than the other way around. So rather than asking it, you know, what is this X, Y, and Z? Get it to ask you questions. Get it to kind of debate yourself, which
almost
is
as though it's critiquing your thinking and your work and that kind of
exactly,
thing.
because then your own expertise are useful, and I think that's where you kind of see this. There's always this debate: will it replace people? How is it going to work with white collar jobs? And in that regard, I see it as a massively useful tool, not just in terms of efficiency gains, but also being able to. He gave, obviously we're in broking, but he gave the example of law that if you're a top legal executive, you need someone to question sometimes some of your judgments, but you may not always have someone of the caliber around to do so. If you can get AI to just jog your memory, to just kind of question your own kind of narrative, that can be massively helpful.
Yeah, even if it's just something that a business owner can use to sort of sense check their thinking on sort of the myriad decisions that will fall across their desk during a day. I think there's probably some value in that as well.
Absolutely.
Something to sort of check your email, that angry email before you send it off, and that kind of thing as well. So there's probably millions of applications that aren't just rewriting your email to make it sound
exactly. And then the last thing that kind of made me laugh that you said, because I said, well, obviously there are still issues, and they both conceded that it needs guardrails. It's not perfect. I mean, the rate of change is massive, but like it's how you adopt it properly. And also when you've got a business that has, it's not just yourself in a business, how can you create a sustainable AI policy when it's moving so fast, and how can you also enforce it? Because he made me laugh. He was like, the first thing you got to realize is everyone's doing a lot more than you are as a boss already.
Yes.
He said often some of the innovations he's really seen, this is Pete, is from his employees, random employees that he talks to. He said, what are you doing now? And he finds out an incredible new way that they're kind of using it and writing new guardrails and creating new products basically off the back of these large language models. It's incredible to see, really.
Yeah, it's tricky, right? It's you can sort of sense, you could understand why someone would feel sort of trepidatious about it, but it's almost become ubiquitous in the sense of how it's being adopted, and people are just sort of diving straight into it. And
that's the issue. He called it shadow AI, of this kind of, within your business, there's when you have issues around compliance, and you've got to make sure you know what your employees are doing right, and this makes it all the more kind of, that adds an extra layer of complexity. Obviously your employees are always free agents, and you have to give them responsibility while also ensuring compliance amongst them, but this is just a new level there.
So basically, are our jobs going to be safe? That's a big question. I don't know. I think everyone's jobs are going to be very different. So.
I think they're very much going to be different. And both interviews was very much like they tell you their vision, and I ask about the 5 years, and I'm like, I don't have a follow-up to that. Like,
yes. That's 5 years. We can sort those problems out 5 years down the track. It's super interesting though, and these guys are like really experienced, really experts in their field. They're working with it every day, and it just goes to show you what is possible already. So if you're sort of just using the most basic elements of it, you really are just scratching the surface.
Well, it's like we're using a rocket launcher to uncan a can or something, aren't we? Like, it's just,
exactly.
It's just we've got this, every single piece of human information able to be manipulated exactly how we want it.
Yeah.
And we're still using it to
it's one of those moments where you're hoping you won't end up on the side of being one of the Luddites who's not using it. I don't know. There'll be a new technology that supersedes it. I'm not too sure.
We'll find out.
We will report on it if so, though. But yeah, if you want to learn more about sort of AI and all the innovations that are going to impact brokers' roles in the next 5 to 10 years, make sure you check out the Business Innovation Summit.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll be a big one this year, and it was really successful last year as well. So.
It was amazing last year. I mean, it is such an interesting area. For the right brokers who are interested in this is an event not to be missed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we'll take one more quick break right now. But when we get back, we'll be looking at some of the other big stories of the week, including a new resource for brokers who are entering their first year. We'll be right back after this message. Welcome back, everybody. So one of the other big stories this week, we covered we've covered a few product launches, which we're going to talk about in a second. But one of the new big stories was a new educational resource from the other industry association, which is the Mortgage and Finance Association of Australia, or the MFAA. And they've released a new educational program for their members called Practical Broker Foundations. The idea behind this is basically to support new brokers in navigating the realities of establishing themselves in the industry. It's designed as sort of a first-year resource, designed in tandem with broker feedback, insights from MFAA learning and development, responses from the association's state managers, and in consultation with mentors and industry leaders across the country. Basically, the program covers a broad range of topics, including lead gen, client retention, and developing long-term client relationships, managing challenging client interactions, meeting compliance obligations, improving loan submission quality, building sustainable business practices, and navigating cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, AI challenges and opportunities. Quite a lot to cover. And also, I think for a lot of brokers probably coming into their first year, they probably wouldn't be on their radar as well, as they're sort of learning how to write loans and learning how to sort of do new business and sort of getting in the, really getting in the weeds of it. That's probably not a lot of
There's so many parts, right, to learn. And obviously at the beginning, you get your accreditation, you might do the diploma, there's those parts, but the reality is a lot of it's kind of learned on the job. And I remember talking to Anya in a podcast a couple of weeks ago, which is going to come out on Broker Daily soon, more about the kind of conference that's coming up, but how important it is for kind of new brokers to learn from each other, to learn from new resources, and to kind of treat the entry into it just the starting point. That compliance side is just the starting point. How you build those skills to build partnerships, build referrals, ultimately create a pipeline that's sustainable, diversify. I mean, there's a million and one things, and I think even the most experienced broker would say that they haven't learned everything yet.
Absolutely.
And then just to add to it, it's a moving target, right? So you're looking at, we just had a section talking about AI, like how you adopt that is such an important part of your business or your own personal development if you work within a business. But then it's moving at the same time. So it's kind of like, I think what's great about this is it seems it's going to give you the ability to kind of learn on your feet, which I think is a big part of that, and give you those kind of soft skills to keep going with your development.
Yeah, I think the way this sort of training is delivered is through sort of a structured email journey, but the resources are housed within the MFAA learning hub, so brokers can sort of access support as they need it, as they sort of coming across these quandaries. But you listen to the New Broker podcast or like Elite Brokers when they're sort of
we're in the midst of the New Broker
Academy as well. So
Academy,
there's plenty of resources out there. I probably should have plugged that immediately. But I think it's just sort of the challenges of starting your own business and making sure there's enough businesses coming in. Where do you find referrals?
Yeah, speaking of shameless plugs, we do all that on Business Accelerator. So if you do want to hear me and Jason back, we unpack all of those things. So we did referrals recently, and again, it's interesting hearing from him saying, the ways that I would teach this, because he's a broker coach, the ways that I would teach this 10 years ago or even 5 years ago are changing. The way you have to approach these things is always changing, and you're experiencing more competitivity, greater customer demand, new tech stacks, how you're going to build that, and just an overall kind of business climate, which is obviously constantly evolving with the kind of contours of the Australian economy. So
and that's the thing with any industry, right? It's always changing. You've always got to keep learning, otherwise you sort of get left behind. But in fairness, it can get overwhelming, particularly when you're sort of at the start of the journey. So when you've got resources like this and the New Broker Academy as well, the next one will be in New South Wales on the 12th of June, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
Hopefully that's right. And but you really have to utilize them as much as you can, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, speaking of which, there's a new innovation. We love to do products on Broker Daily as well as the advisor. So one of the big ones that we saw coming out was obviously Pepper Money has launched its real-time application tracking tool. Now, these have been seen, they're certainly not the only lender that has this, but it was a real dive in. Like I found it quite interesting seeing how it kind of worked. It was a real window into the way that kind of applications will go in the future, and it kind of tied together a few of the things we've been talking about today. So it's a kind of a real-time application management platform. It's straight through the broker portal, so it gives kind of brokers the visibility over their home loan applications, and it gives that real-time status updates, which, I mean, for brokers I know, that's so important, because they always say that sometimes when they're kind of trying to settle a loan, something that should take 5 minutes can take an entire day. Just faffing around trying to find out what are the hitches in getting a deal across. So it does seem that this could really change the game in terms of that, reduce the kind of speed and create a bit more of an efficient process there.
Yeah, because one of those things that people really want when they're sort of, it's not just speed and the right rate, it's that certainty and clarity. Is this actually going to get approved? Where is this at? That kind of thing. So you can really understand the appeal of a tool like that.
Absolutely. I always notice, there's obviously as an intermediary for brokers, they've kind of got two kind of gaps they've got to fill. It's between them and their client, of course, and then it's between them and the lender, right? So you've got two different kind of areas, and the more that can kind of flow seamlessly, the better. I think they've piloted this with a few brokers from Mortgage Choice. And obviously the feedback overall has been pretty good in terms of kind of how the lodgement settlement works, but just making that a continuous curve from the client originally wanting the loan to actually settling is like any broker will tell you that's such an important part.
Yeah, brilliant. And along a similar trail, we had another story come out yesterday, and this will probably round out our coverage for this week, from Aussie. Aussie has launched a new tool for customers that enables them to present notifications about refinancing opportunities. This one's called Rate Radar. Mm-hmm. It enables Aussie app users to link their existing home loan using open banking technology or via manual input. They can select a specific annual savings target that would prompt them to consider refinancing, such as $1,000 a year, and then it scans the market against the user's current loan credentials, tracking variable rate options, as well as sort of setting reminders for fixed rate loans in order to identify alternatives near their expiry date. So once an alternative matches or exceeds the user's specified savings threshold, the app notifies the broker and their customer, and the client can then schedule an appointment with the broker. Oh. So it's very smart. It's kind of like
super. I mean, because I talked to some of the finalists for the Broker Innovation Awards, and some of their stuff was on a similar level, where they were kind of building their own tools to know when to talk to basically create that loan as a journey of how can we know when to refi, how can we know the exact right times, and how can we kind of manage this a bit better. So it's interesting to see that while that's innovating kind of at the ground level, you're also seeing these kind of larger organizations also look at that as a real avenue.
Yeah, and this is this is very similar to along a similar line to what Aussie has been trying to do with its sort of find by own proposition and the launch of its app and a range of programs. This sort of shift towards automated data tracking in loan management. And Aussie has sort of flagged that there will be further digital updates scheduled for the next month. So lots to go on. Aussie CEO Sebastian Watkins did say it was a passion project for him, understandably. And it's really solved, I guess, one of those biggest problems in the broking industry, which is sort of what happens in between the transactions, sort of. And how do you trigger the conversations, and how do you know the right time, I suppose? Which
knowing, it was all about knowing clients, but any kind of help to kind of jog you, particularly as your loan book fills up, is all the better, I'd say.
Brilliant. Well, Julian, thank you so much for joining me today to run through the big headlines of the week. Do you have much planned? We've got a long weekend in New South Wales coming up. So
which we only found out. Well, it's our own fault, but me and you were just chatting the other day, and we were like, oh, there's a long weekend coming.
Yes, yeah.
So no, probably kicking back, relaxing, I'd imagine. I think the weather's meant to be pretty good over here in Sydney. So, as a Brit, I'm going to be loving it.
Yeah, too good. Yeah, I don't think I've got too much planned, but I'll come up with something. Accidentally come into the office one day.
I think there will be some. I feel like this one's really crept up on everyone.
Well, thanks so much for joining me on as well. As I said, probably a half-hour stream of consciousness into the camera probably wouldn't have been the most enjoyable lesson, but I appreciate you coming on. And if our listeners want to, you can read Julian's work on Broker Daily or listen to any of the podcasts he's on. So make sure you get over to Broker Daily and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks so much for listening today, guys. If you enjoyed that, make sure you read all the stories, get all the details, and let us know if there's anything you're interested in seeing or hearing that you think we should be covering on The Advisor. Best way to get in touch is always editor@theadvisor.com.au, or if you want to reach out to me, it's ben.squires@momentummedia.com.au. Otherwise, we hope you have a fantastic weekend, and make sure you catch us next week for another episode of What's Making Headlines on The Advisor Podcast Network.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.